The best of Money Matters. Wealth Tracker.
Welcome to the Wealth Tracker, where we dive into the uncharted territories of niche investment strategies that promise to redefine wealth. Hello, I'm Hongbin Jeong. 2024 was a breakout year for space stocks, with many companies making headlines for their rapid growth and innovative advancements. Now, this year, the space industry is poised at the edge of an era defined by technological leaps, corporate giants, and groundbreaking ventures. A new frontier of investment opportunities is taking shape, one that promises to not only change the way we view the cosmos, but also the way we invest in the future. So to find out more, joining me now is Peter Lundgreen, who is the CEO of Lundgreen's Capital. Peter, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Thank you so much for joining us. Peter, last year was a big one for the space sector, marked by, SpaceX's building momentum, Boeing's Starliner struggles, and a slew of activity from a host of names here. So what can we expect in 2025? I mean, what's been going on this year? Are there any key developments we should be closely watching? What have been the biggest trends so far in 2025?
Actually, a move we saw in April, not more than 1.5 months ago, when Amazon really took off, so to say, with launching a batch of satellites within, as they're calling the company, United Launch Alliance. And they're actually now entering the market probably in a very strong competition to Elon Musk's Starlink. And what Amazon wants to reach out to is actually to offer broadband, high-speed internet to even a broader part of the world. So they are going direct into a competition to Starlink, and that is another kickoff of a very strong growth within the number of satellites getting sent up and new networks getting offered to, you could say, to all of us, but also enabling new business opportunities and new services. So that was actually a big thing we saw in April. So it is accelerating also during this year, sending up more satellites. Very interesting, actually.
Okay. Well, space stocks reached new heights in 2024. Companies including AST, Space Mobile, Rocket Lab, Intuitive Machines, and Redwire, they saw their share prices jump up, in some cases over 400% by the end of the year. I mean, can we expect the same momentum this year? How are these stocks faring at the moment as we're now, halfway into the new year?
I would say some of the companies you mentioned there, they draw a bit of very optimistic investors rushing into whatever they're available of space. They are interesting companies, but I'll say it might be a bit too fast, so we can't see the same thing. A lot of sort of space-like companies, they might actually, when we talk about the stock price, more need to consolidate at a good level. And that would actually be not bad for investors. And then what investors could do is look into the new services that could come up if we have a much stronger space coverage, as simply more satellites flying around. That would probably already be the next sort of area where investors would look into, I believe.
Okay. So what roles are legacy aerospace corporations like, Boeing or Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman playing in the current space boom?
The good question is, with all the satellites that needs to be built, is it good to build the satellites, or is it good to run the satellites, or is it actually even better to be invest into new services that can arise? Of course, I'll say that the big names, they will profit. Yes, they will profit. It's not necessarily where we as investors would see the stock price will jump, as we have seen some of the other companies you mentioned, but it will support these major players, of course. They will support of this new boom in the satellite business, yes.
Right. Well, other than focusing on the specific space stocks, a smart way to gain exposure to the space industry is, of course, by investing in a variety of related companies. Overall, Peter, what are some key indicators investors should watch when evaluating space stocks?
There's a couple of complexities investing into the space segment. First of all, it's not a lot of institutional investors investing into space. And the reason is, for decades, it has been, after all, it's big numbers, but it has, if we look compared to other segments in the world, like retail or production or whatever, then space is very small, and it's simply too small for many institutional investors to say, okay, we keep our own in-house analysts to cover the segment. So it is also why we see some of these maybe significant jumps in space stocks now and then. It's mainly dominated by private investors and less institutional investors. So it is investing into a niche market. That means the volatility is expected to be much higher than a big broad segment, that's for sure. And also when evaluating the space stocks, it means there's not so many professionals, as from the institutional investment side, that are looking into the segment. So it is more a risk of getting carried away as a private investor. But if I also see some positive, some upside, that is the growth in satellites and the satellite coverage actually opens up for very interesting new features, and some of them will win, but it is within a small segment, and it means that new windows that opens up are even smaller again in their segment. And we can talk about maybe mining rare earths on asteroids using robots and that are run by controlled by satellites and so. But there can be very interesting upsides, but again, very niche focused.
Okay. Well, are there any risks associated with investing in space stocks that investors should be aware of, though?
I would say, again, yes, it is a niche, high volatility. It is a new area. You would say not, but some of the expansions are very big, and that will generate new areas with sort of an uncertain business outlook. And there will also be big competition from, I would say, state-owned operators. There are plans that we have, I would say it's seen that China is expected maybe to launch 26,000 satellites, meaning it will be some very big players out there, government controlled, and actually also the European Union might take a major step one day. So it is a marketplace where also government players will be dominating, and that is always another risk that investors should be aware of for sure.
Well, then how should investors weigh the long-term growth potential of space stocks against short-term volatility?
Yeah, if an investment is very volatile, also short-term, the best way to deal with this is classical for investors to have smaller allocations, smaller positions within the segment than what they normally would have. That is general good advice, I would say. And as the space is simply uncertain, an investor might even need to try to identify, let's say, 3 sort of a bit different areas or segments within this space segment where they say, okay, to have a very sort of, we call it a mini portfolio within a segment to spread the risk a bit, yeah. That is, and again, not an overly big allocation. That is simply the way to deal with high volatility.
Well, before we let you go here, Peter, what will you be watching in the next couple of weeks or months that could move space stocks?
Surely, I'll follow very closely what Amazon is, how it's going for them with the move on satellites. And actually, I would also look a bit into news if we go into the Asian region, what's happening in Bangladesh, what is happening in Indonesia, countries where the governments have, as we see it, very active interest in expanding within space and satellite operations. Interesting things could happen there, and also, therefore, new opportunities arising in the region in Asia.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Peter, for joining me today.
Yeah, pleasure being on board. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Peter Lundgreen, who is the CEO of Lundgreen's Capital. This has been the Wealth Tracker with me, Hongbin Jeong.
Before acting on the information on Money FM, please consider if it's suitable for your own investment objectives, financial situation, and risk tolerance. To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.